The college football playoff is flawed. It's flawed. Now, hear me clearly. We are not going to gripe and complain and moan on the show about the current standings right now of the college football playoff. What I'm here to do is try and bring some solutions to the table here, all right? Some people like to just point at the issues and make a case about that. We're going to look at some solutions, all right? I'll say this too. In the context of how the college football playoff is currently being decided, I disagree with the field. I don't think we have the 12 best teams. But given the rules to the game we're playing right now, I think that the logic of how we arrived at this field is fairly sound. It's fairly sound. This is not me standing on the table shouting for South Carolina to get in the dance. We've already done that. We've moved on. And honestly, in our solutions we have baked in here, I don't even know that South Carolina would get into our own 12-team field going forward, while we still think they're one of the 12 best teams in the country. I want us to start here. Auto bids to decide the 12 best teams in the college football playoff is dumb. It's dumb. And now maybe this will change over the course of the next few years, and we'll get a better gauge, and a larger sample size will provide more intel. But right now, from what I can tell, they are dumb. The reason why I feel that way, auto bids reward a conference as opposed to rewarding the best teams. Like, you should not get credit if your conference is down for winning your conference and having an auto bid into the college football playoff. To take it a step further, those auto bids, 4 of those 5 auto bids, get you a bye in the college football playoff. In what world does that make sense? Now, I can already hear the comment section. The live chat's going to pop off. This guy's an elitist. This guy hates Boise State. He doesn't want to see SMU win. I'm not saying any of those things. Actually, go ahead and check where the rankings are right now. Boise State, if we took auto bids out of this thing and just said, hey, take the top 12 teams, Boise State gets in. SMU, we handle business this weekend. You get in. Arizona State, if you put a thwacking on Iowa State, whatever that looks like, I think you have a chance to get in. So if we're talking about 12 best teams, it feels foolish to have a discussion around, well, you may not be a top 12 team, but if you win your conference, maybe you find a way to sneak in there. No. If you are who you say you are, if you are one of those top 12 teams, then you run your conference more than likely. And this is where we'll get into trouble, but I'll say it anyway. Let's not pretend that the ACC and the Big 12 are equal to where the Big 10 and the SEC is. Before you shout at me, just hear me clearly. If SEC and Big 10 bias is real, what we always say on this show is the NFL draft is in on it. Because every single year, the NFL, the scouts, the GMs, the people that have their food they put on the table dependent on finding the best players in the world of college football and otherwise to fill their rosters, they go to those two conferences. Now, I'm not saying year in and year out it's always that way. I think you have seasons where you can point to the ACC being superior. I think you have years you can point to the Big 12 being superior. But for the most part, at a macro level, and I think this year included, those conferences are not on par with what the Big 10 and the SEC is. I feel like that's not necessarily a groundbreaking statement. So what I'm trying to say here is if you're a school in the Big 12 and you want to go to the college football playoff, I'm all here for it. Go handle business in a conference that I don't think is necessarily on par with what the SEC or the Big 10 is. If you're the ACC, same deal. And that's not me down on those conferences. I'm telling you, if you're one of those teams, go handle business and get in the dance. Okay? Because we have schools like SMU who's done exactly that. They have a strength of schedule of like 75. Doesn't matter. SMU's handling business. Yeah, 1 loss on their schedule. Okay, go do that. Go win the conference. You're in the dance. To me, that feels like a very fair way to put this whole discussion together and to put this 12 best team discussion together. Because I'm a little bit irritated with the idea that we keep saying 12 best teams, and then we have all these back doors into how you get a team that's not actually ranked in the top 12 into the college football playoff. Again, Boise State, you're not hearing a word out of me. Boise State's handled business. They played Oregon to a 1-score game at Oregon's place. Put Boise State in. Also, let's not act like there's this agenda from the powers that be to get other teams into the college football playoff. Like Cincinnati as in 4-team field got in. I'm not telling you it's perfect, and that's kind of where we arrive here. Like, this is never going to be perfect. We're never going to sit here on Selection Sunday and say, yep, no notes, 100% agreement across the board. Good work by the committee. If you have a job on the college football playoff committee, you already lost. And you probably know that you signed up to lose. But I would say I think we can probably revamp the college football playoff committee a little bit. And this is not taking shots at anyone on that committee, but just so we're on the same page, I don't know that I want athletic directors deciding on who some of the 12 best teams are. Now, the committee, I think, probably gets a little more flack than they deserve. One, again, it's a lose-lose situation. Anyone who puts rankings together, you've already lost. Folks in media already know that. But it's not like we just have a bunch of people that don't know football on that list. Like, you have former players in that committee. You have former coaches in that committee. The thing for me is, if we're trying to do this in the very best way possible, would we maybe benefit from having some other folks that are more dialed into the sport on a much more granular level to make the selections for the college football playoff? Asking a question here. Would you sleep better at night knowing you got Nick Saban and Joel Klatt on the committee? Or would you rather have an AD from X, Y, and Z University and a former head coach that was in college football all but, 10 years ago? Food for thought. I think we can revamp the committee. I think we get some more, some dialed-in individuals to make these decisions. And I think we'll end up with a more competitive / better field of 12. So again, this isn't me standing on my soapbox saying leave the Big 12 out, leave the ACC out. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you want to get in the dance, handle business, and don't leave it up for interpretation where you got to get an auto bid, where you're not actually a top 12 team. The rankings put you at 17, but somehow, some way, we think you're a top 12 team because you won the conference. Again, I don't think that's necessarily the way to go about this. One more thing I'll say here, the seeding we have right now for the college football playoff doesn't make a ton of sense. And hat tip Joel Klatt here, he might have been the first to say this. There should not be a world where you desire a lower seed for an advantage in the college football playoff. Should not happen. We should reward the teams that do what they're supposed to do during the regular season and the conference title games, and they should be seeded accordingly. So a solution to this, or to walk it out further here, look at that bracket. You got Penn State at 5, assuming they lose the Big Ten championship. Their path is much more advantageous than the Big Ten champion in Oregon in this situation. I got to play Arizona State and then Boise State. No knock on either of those schools. From a roster talent perspective, I'd much rather play them before I play the winner of Tennessee, Georgia. I don't think we're firing off like hot takes here when we say that. So the solution here, again, not pointing out problems and saying somebody fix this. We're saying here's a solution. Let's have a 12-team field, no auto bids, 4 top teams get a bye, and after that first round of the college football playoff, let's go ahead and reseed. So let's say there is an upset for the number 12 team. They end up winning that football game. Let's go ahead and make sure the number 1 team gets to play the lowest ranked seed. We reseed things after that first round. That would make a lot of sense to me. So again, it's never going to be perfect. I love that we have human beings making these decisions. I think we are much closer to perfect than we were in the BCS. If it was all about metrics and data and all that, we would go to the BCS. We want people making these decisions. I think there's a chance to improve the committee. I think there's a chance to improve our structure. And ultimately, in that way, I think we all want the same thing. We all want what's best for the sport. So I think that'd be best for the sport, most competitive field with the right teams in the dance.